Now these are two things, they're cookies and they're fudgy, but the best thing is they're simply delish. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. I've never met a single person who doesn't love cookies. There's hundreds of recipes out there, but there's an all-time favourite that I just know that you'll love. So join me today as I make my version of M&M cookies. Now we're going to start this off by melting our butter and sugar. So into a microwave safe bowl, I'm going to place in about 2 tablespoons worth of butter, followed by 1 cup of chocolate chips. Now I'm using semi-sweet chocolate chips, and we're going to place these into the microwave for 30 seconds at a time on high, stirring each time until everything is completely melted and well combined. Okay, so that's the consistency you're after. See how it's nice and creamy and everything is well combined. Okay, so while our chocolate butter mixture is cooling down, into a mixing bowl I'm going to place in 2 large eggs, followed by a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons of milk, followed by half a cup of sugar and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Make sure it's firmly packed. Now the reason why we say firmly packed is just make sure you get the right amount because it's slightly moist and never actually sits as snug in a cup as normal sugar. So always use firmly packed when using it as a guide when it comes to measurements. And now we're just going to whisk this through until everything is well combined and the sugar is dissolved. Okay, so once that's all nicely mixed, next I'm going to add in 1 cup of self-raising flour or plain flour, but add about a teaspoon of baking powder to it. And then 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. And mix it through just for a few seconds until it's just combined. We don't want to over mix it. Now you can do this by hand if you choose. Okay, so once the dry ingredients are mixed through, we're going to add in our melted chocolate and butter, followed by half a cup of chocolate chips, and finally 1.5 cups, or about 350 grams of M&Ms, or over here we call them a share pack. So just place most of them into our mixing bowl. I'm just going to save just a couple to put on top of our cookies. I don't know what it is about M&Ms, but they're so colourful and so chocolatey. And simply mix it through just for a few seconds until everything is combined. And that's it. You don't want to over mix it. Okay, so I've got a baking tray here and I've just lined it with some non-stick baking paper. So just get your desired amount of mixture and just place just some dollops like so onto our baking paper. And remember how I said just save some M&Ms? We're just going to place just a couple of extras just on top, just so they really make our cookies pop just a little bit more. Okay, so once done, we're going to place them into a preheated oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius for 18 minutes. And there we have our deliciously double chocolate fudgy cookies with M&Ms. It's got chocolate upon chocolate upon chocolate. Does it really get any better than that? So these are definitely an indulgent cookie, but an absolutely delicious one. And the best thing is they're incredibly simple to put together, don't take long in the oven, and they taste simply delish. It's fudgy yet spongy. Takes just a couple of minutes to put together, a few ingredients, and this is absolutely delicious. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. This is a shout out to a fantastic bunch of students from the Green class. Now you know who you are, you watch me all the time and I really do appreciate it. This is a fantastic recipe that I know you can easily create in class or at home. All you need is a microwave and a mug and a couple of few ingredients. So join me today as I make my version of a marshmallow fudge cake in a mug. Okay, so to start this off, we're going to use a standard coffee mug. And with that, we're going to start by melting our butter and chocolate. So into the mug, I've placed a tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of chocolate chips. Now I'm using milk chocolate, but you can also use dark chocolate if you like. And we're going to place this into the microwave for 30 seconds at a time. Give it a good stir each time until everything is completely melted and well combined. And look at that, it is nice and creamy and all well combined. Next into our mug, we're going to place in 1 egg yolk, then about a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, a tablespoon of sugar, and 3 tablespoons of regular all plain flour. Just don't use self-raising flour. Now give it a very good mix until everything is well combined and it's nice and smooth. Once it's all combined, we're going to place it into the microwave on high for exactly 40 seconds. Okay, so it's been 40 seconds and it already looks and smells delicious. Now I'm just going to place a few marshmallows on top. 2, 3, I'll leave it completely up to you. White, pink, again, it doesn't matter. So now we're going to place it back into the microwave for another 10 seconds. Take it out, make sure it's cooked, then for another 10 seconds after that until those marshmallows are nice and melted. Now would you look at that, and the smell is fantastic, and those marshmallows have melted on top perfectly. Still spongy like a normal cake, but it's also very fudgy as well, just exactly how it should be. So it literally took me about 2 minutes to put together, and a few ingredients, and it's absolutely delicious. So it's super simple. Make sure it's only in moderation, of course, but no matter what, whether you use white marshmallows, pink marshmallows, or both marshmallows, it's always going to taste simply delish. You have that creamy, smooth texture of fudge with those crunchy M&Ms. How can you possibly go wrong? G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Who doesn't love fudge? It's so fudgy, so delicious. And also M&Ms, both by themselves are a fantastic treat. But today I'm going to slap them both together and make it even better. So join me today as I make my version of M&M Fudge. And don't forget to check out toddskitchen.com for my new mug range and t-shirts and jackets. Okay, so we're going to start this off with the pot on the stove on a medium to high heat. So to that we're going to add in, firstly, 2 cups of sugar. Now remember, this is fudge, and well, fudge is pretty much sugar, so don't be surprised with the amount of sugar that's in it. And 3/4 of a cup of butter. Now melted or still hard like this, it really makes no difference because it is going to melt pretty fast. And to that, 3/4 of a cup of thickened cream or whipping cream. And to help enhance the flavors, just going to add just a little bit of salt. So basically, just for the next minute or so, we're just going to keep on stirring this over this medium to high heat until everything is dissolved. So the sugar is dissolved, the butter is melted, and everything is well combined. Okay, so as you can see, the mixture has been brought up to a boil. So now we're going to keep on stirring this, but we're going to keep on stirring for 5 minutes. And what this is going to do is it's going to help cook the sugar, which will give that fudge a nice firm consistency. Just so when you take it out, it's not all runny or very soft. You want that nice firm fudge consistency that just stays in your hand, and you can eat it slowly, or some people fast. So it's like candy, the longer you cook it, the harder it gets. But fudge, with all these ingredients, 5 minutes is just enough to maintain that fudgy firmness. Okay, so while our mixture is boiling away, into a mixing bowl, I'm going to place in 7 ounces or about 200 grams of marshmallows. Any type of marshmallows will do. And then to that, 11 ounces or about 300 grams of white chocolate chips. Okay, so with our mixture off the stove, we're just going to pour it over our chocolate chips and marshmallows. Now, if you're using a stand mixer like me, you want to use the whisk attachment. Otherwise, the normal hand mixer will do. And we're just going to whisk it for a couple of minutes until everything is completely dissolved and the chocolate and marshmallows have completely melted and combined with the mixture. Okay, look at that, it's nice and creamy. And would you look at that, look how creamy and delicious that looks. Feel free, of course, to lick the whisker, but just be careful not to get your tongue stuck in it. And now finally for the main ingredient, and that's our M&Ms. Now, as a little tip, I've placed them in the freezer for a few hours. This will help prevent them from melting, because this fudge is still pretty warm. So you don't want the M&Ms to melt. But once they're cold, they're fine. And just with a spoon, just simply fold them through. You don't want to whisk these through because they'll probably dissolve pretty fast. And we don't want that. We still want those M&M colours. We don't want them to seep through. And that's it. Just a couple of seconds of stirring and it's done. Okay, so I've just got a lined baking dish here. Make sure that there's some overhang because it makes it easy to pull out the fudge once it's set. And just simply place our fudge into our pan. And you've got to work fast because this will start to harden up pretty quickly as it's cooled down. Now you can use brown or dark chocolate for this, but I prefer white chocolate simply because it really brings out the colours of those M&Ms when you cut it up. So just going to smooth it out as best you can while it's still, see what I mean? Some of the colours are starting to slightly mix with the heat. That's why you want to work as fast as you can, just so you don't have too much of a rainbow effect. Unless, of course, that's what you want, but I want that more neater white chocolate look. White fudge chocolate. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat on the top. In fact, it's actually better to have a bit of a swirly design on top anyway, because it just adds to it. And that's it. It's that simple. Now I'm just going to place this into the fridge for a good 2 hours to completely set. Okay, so I've just taken it out of the fridge after a few hours, and this is where the overhang really helps quite a bit. See, just pull it straight out and just rest it so it's ready to cut up. Now it is going to be a bit harder as you take it straight out of the fridge, but when it comes down to room temperature, you're going to get that nice fudgy consistency. But I'm just cutting it straight out of the fridge. That's just why it's just a little bit harder to cut it first. And there we have it. Very simple, very easy, very delicious M&M Fudge. Now you can serve it straight from the fridge or let it warm up a little bit to room temperature where it's a little more fudgy. Who doesn't love fudge, but when you mix it with cookies and cream, it takes it to the next level. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Everyone loves fudge and there are so many recipes out there, literally hundreds. And this one's a very simple one, yet very delicious. So join me today as I make my version of a cookies and cream fudge. And don't forget to check out toddskitchen.com for my fantastic merchandise. Now to start this fudge recipe off, we're going to use a pot on the stove on a low to medium heat. So into that pot, I'm going to place in 1 cup of brown sugar. Now I'm sure you'll be asking, do you have to use brown sugar? No, you can use white sugar, but the taste is far, far better. And of course, if you can't find brown sugar in your area, I'll leave a link in the description below to my how-to playlist where you will find my recipe on how to make your own brown sugar. Then to that, I'm going to add in 125 grams of butter, followed by 1 whole can or about 400 grams of sweetened condensed milk. And you're probably thinking, well, this is a lot of sugar, but well, that's what fudge is. And then finally, roughly 2 tablespoons of glucose syrup, or it's also referred to as corn syrup. And this just helps stabilize all the sugars. Now again, if you can't find this in your area, you will find it in the playlist at the end of the video or in the description on how to make your own glucose syrup. I've literally made everything. So if there's low to medium heat, just keep on stirring everything. And we're just going to keep on doing this just until it's all dissolved and it's lump free. Okay, so as you can see, everything is nicely dissolved and it's just started to simmer. So now we're going to let this sit here and simmer away for exactly 8 minutes. And that'll just help cook the sugar, so while it's setting, it's going to set nice and firm. So let it simmer away on this low simmer for 8 minutes, no more, no less. Okay, so it's been 8 minutes, and as you can see, when you use a spatula there and just how it leaves that gap in between momentarily, that means it's done and it's ready. So just take this straight off the heat. Okay, so now with our fudge mixture off the heat, next I'm going to add in 200 grams of milk chocolate and just give that a good stir through until the chocolate is completely melted. Okay, so that's exactly what you're after. See how the chocolate is now completely melted, and doesn't that look delicious? Makes you just want to eat it right now if it just wasn't so hot. Now lastly, I got just over half a standard packet of Oreo cookies that I've just lightly chopped up. So we're just going to place that into the mix. Now feel free to use a little bit more, a little bit less, it's up to you, but I find just over half a packet is just the right consistency. So we're just going to just gently fold that in. We don't want to over mix it, just so everything's covered. So lastly, I've just got a baking tray here. I've just lined it with some non-stick baking paper. So just simply pour your mixture into our lined baking dish. Okay, so once that's all done, we're simply going to let that sit here at room temperature for about half an hour till it cools down a bit more, and then place it into the fridge for a good 6 hours to completely set. And as a word of advice, try not to stick your finger in there during that time to get a taste test, because this really does smell delicious. Okay, so our fudge is fresh out of the fridge and it is completely set. So all that's left now is to cut it up into our desired slices. And just look at that delicious cookies and cream fudge. Now, once sliced up, we have this delicious and creamy and smooth cookies and cream fudge. Now, I recommend that you keep it in the fridge in a sealed container until it's ready to serve. But when you have a mixture of that lovely creamy fudge chocolate mixed in with those Oreo cookies that turn it into that lovely cookies and cream, and of course you don't have to use Oreos, you can use a similar type of cookie, it's up to you. But no matter what type of cream cookies you use, either way, this cookies and cream fudge is going to taste simply delish. Now you're going to be surprised at how easy this fudge recipe is, because it really only needs 3 to 4 ingredients. The first ingredient being white chocolate. Now I have 3 cups here of white chocolate melts. Then to that I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of butter. And all we have to do now is simply place this into the microwave, and we're going to place it in there for 30 seconds at a time, stirring each time until everything is completely melted and well combined. Now our chocolate's been melted. Now this is optional, this is why I said 3 to 4 ingredients, but I like to add just a little bit of vanilla extract. And for our final ingredient, a while ago I made caramel in a crock pot. And if you missed that video, I'll leave a link down below on how to make your own. And we're just going to carefully fold it through. We don't want to mix it in because we want like a ripple effect. So we don't want it all one uniform colour. Now lastly, I just have a lined baking tray here. That's up to you what size. That only comes down to how thick you want your fudge. So just simply place our fudge mixture into the pan, and once all nice and even, we're going to place it in the fridge for about 3 to 4 hours to completely set. Okay, once out of the fridge, all that's left now is to just cut it up into your desired shapes. And there we have a very delicious, very gooey caramel fudge. Now this is a soft fudge, so I recommend that you keep it in the fridge until it's ready to serve. So it's slightly more moist because of the caramel that I used, compared to the room temperature fudge you buy from the shops. But as long as you keep it in the fridge until it's ready to serve, it's still going to keep its shape. But fudge and caramel in one name, you know it's going to taste simply delish. Now to start this off, we're going to use a microwave safe bowl. So into that microwave safe bowl, I'm going to place in 340 grams or about 11 ounces of dark chocolate chips. And then we're going to follow that up with the exact same amount of milk chocolate chips. And then to that, about half a cup of Nutella. Okay, so now we're going to place this into the microwave on high for 30 seconds at a time. And after every 30 seconds, give it a good stir, put it in for another 30 seconds, stir it again until it's completely melted and well combined. Okay, so while that's melting, I have 2 packets of mini marshmallows. So with the first packet, I'm just going to line the base of a lined tray. Okay, so our chocolate and Nutella mixture is completely melted and nice and smooth. Look at that. So next I'm going to add between half and 1 cup of these chocolate puffs. Think rice bubbles or rice puffs, but the chocolate version. Then I'm going to sprinkle in our second packet of mini marshmallows. And finally, for an extra bit of flavour, some dried blueberries. Now you can also use dry strawberries, that's also a good alternative. And simply give it a good mix until it's all combined. And all we have to do now is just simply pour our mixture on top of our prepared marshmallows. Okay, once smoothed out, just simply place it into the fridge for a good 2 hours to completely set. So I've taken them out of the fridge, cut them up into lovely squares, and look how delicious they look. With a mixture of dark and milk chocolate mixed in with that lovely Nutella, it gives it just the right mix of chocolate flavour. And you mix up with the texture of those lovely marshmallows and the dried blueberries. Trust me, you're going to have more than one piece of this because they taste simply delish. Now as this is a 3-layer fudge, we're going to work on one layer at a time. So into a mixing bowl, I have 4 ounces or 110 grams of softened cream cheese. And all you have to do with a hand or stand mixer, just beat it for a couple minutes until it's nice and creamy. Okay, now that we've creamed our cream cheese, next I'm going to place in 1.5 cups of confectionery sugar or powdered sugar and mix that through until it's well combined. Now finally, I have 8 ounces or 220 grams of melted chocolate, which I've just melted in the microwave, and I've also let it cool down for a couple of minutes. So just pour that into our bowl, and again mix it through until it's well combined. And finally I just have a lined baking pan here, so just simply place your first layer into the pan. And once flattened out, simply place this layer into the fridge while we get started on the next. So the first few steps of the second layer are pretty much the same as the first. We're going to start by creaming 4 ounces or 110 grams of softened cream cheese, followed by 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. Now this is where the differences change. For this layer, I'm going to use 8 ounces or 220 grams of white chocolate, which again I've also just melted in the microwave. And for a different layer of flavour, I'm going to add just a little bit of strawberry essence, and to enhance the colour, just a few drops of red food colouring. Then simply mix it through to combine. So now it's just a simple matter of placing our white chocolate strawberry mixture on top of our chocolate mixture. Then simply place it in the fridge while we get started on the final layer. And now throw a third and final layer. So again, 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, followed by 1.5 cups of powdered sugar, and all we need now is 8 ounces of melted white chocolate. And mix to combine. And now all we have to do is simply place our last layer into our pan. And we're going to place this into the fridge for about 3 hours to completely set. And there we have some very delicious Neapolitan fudge. 3 colours, 3 different flavours, but they work so well together. So you can take a bite out of one or all at the same time. So we've all tried the ice cream version, but try the fudge version because it's just as good. And the best thing is, you can't buy this in the shop, so when you make it at home, you can really impress your friends with something new and exciting. Because when they bite into one of these, straight away they're going to say this tastes simply delish. With just a simple 4 ingredients, we have a very simple, very delicious Shamrock Shake Fudge. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. I've made a number of fudge recipes and this one's just as delicious, just as easy. So join me today as I make my version of a 4 ingredient Shamrock Fudge. Now for the first of our 4 ingredients, we're going to use some vanilla icing. Now this is meant to be a simple recipe, so I'm just going to use the pre-made stuff and I'm going to place this into the microwave, uncovered of course, for 30 seconds at a time and just give it a good stir each time until you get to a runny consistency. Okay, with our pre-made frosting all melted, we're just going to pour it into a container. And to that we're going to add just a little bit of green food colouring. It's up to you how much you want to use, so you can get to the desired shade that you like. And of course some peppermint extract. And give it a good stir to combine. And lastly, I have some chocolate chips, some white chocolate chips. I'm going to place these into the microwave as well, by themselves. And we're going to microwave them for 30 seconds at a time. Give them a stir and keep on doing that until they're completely melted. Now the reason why I didn't do them both at the same time, if you add food colouring to white chocolate, it actually congeals and it just makes a very lumpy consistency. So it's best to do after you've already added the colours to our frosting. Okay, so all we have to do now is pour in our melted white chocolate and mix it in until it's well combined. Okay, so lastly I just have a container here. I've just lined it with some non-stick baking paper. So all we have to do now is just pour in our Shamrock Fudge. Okay, now all we have to do is simply place it into the fridge for a good 1 hour to completely set, and it's ready to cut up. And there we have it, our delicious Shamrock Shake Fudge. Literally took me just a few minutes to put together, and once it's set in the fridge for an hour, it is cut up, and look at that, it looks fantastic, doesn't it? So it's a very simple treat, a very easy treat, definitely one you want to have in moderation, but if you love Shamrock shakes, give this a go because you'll think it tastes simply delish. This coconut fudge recipe is not only creamy and sweet, it's absolutely delicious. And it's also dairy-free, gluten-free, and it's paleo. Now this really is an incredibly simple recipe to make because it's simply all done in one pot. So to start off with, I've got a pot on the stove on a medium heat. So to that I'm going to add in half a cup of coconut oil. Now you could do this in the microwave, but it works better doing it in a pot, just so you can stir it better, because the next ingredient we're going to use is cocoa powder, and you really want to be able to stir that in as it's warming up. So I'm just going to place in that half a cup worth, followed by half a cup of almond butter. Now smooth or crunchy, it's up to you. And you don't have to use just almond butter, you can use like a mixed nut butter as well, it's up to you. It comes down to personal taste. And then on top of that, a quarter cup of maple syrup. And to enhance the flavour, just a pinch of salt. So while keeping on a medium heat, we're just going to whisk it up just for a couple minutes until everything is completely dissolved and it's nice and smooth. Well, as smooth as you can get it, assuming you've used smooth almond butter, but you just want to make sure the cocoa powder is completely dissolved. And also, please do me a huge favour by joining my social network sites like Facebook and Instagram. I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as during this video. And don't forget to check out toddskitchen.com for my fantastic merchandise. And once you've got it to as smooth as you can possibly get it, you don't have to bring it up to a boil. We're simply stirring it until the cocoa powder is dissolved and everything is mixed up nicely. So once it's all nicely smooth, just take it straight off the heat. We don't actually need to cook anything. So now it's just a simple matter of pouring it into our container. Now, with the measurements I'm using, you don't want to use a big container because you still want reasonably thick pieces. But with this recipe, you can always double or even triple. So you can have a much larger container if you choose, or you can have thicker pieces or thinner pieces. Okay, so the only thing left to do now is just simply place this into the fridge for about 2 hours to completely set. Okay, so I've just taken it out of the fridge. Now I forgot to line it, but what I've done is I've just put it in some warm water for about 15 seconds. It'll just melt just the base, so it should just... Okay, so it's pretty unusual. I forget to do a particular step, but I have no problem admitting when I've made a mistake. So let it be a learning lesson. Just make sure you use some baking paper or parchment paper. Just line the container that you're putting the fudge in. So it's already cracked here, but it doesn't matter because we're going to cut it up anyway. So it's just a simple matter of cutting up your desired sizes of fudge. So once it's cut up, you're not going to notice that you've actually broken it in half, but of course you're not going to make my mistake now by not lining your baking tray. And now would you look at that, and it is very, very creamy, easy to bite into. Now my version has some nuts in it, but you can also do the smooth version if you like. It basically just comes down to texture, but it won't affect the taste. So it's not only a lot healthier, well far, far healthier than many other fudge recipes. The one thing that matters most is that it tastes simply delish.